Thank you all for your interest in our grant programs and spending some time this Wednesday night to hear more about them. My name is Laura Mall, and I run a few of our programs here at the department that we're going to cover tonight. So I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible. I know that there was a lot of questions submitted when you registered. Hopefully we are able to answer most of them as we go through the presentation, but if not, please put them in the chat and we will try to get as many as possible at the end. So here is our agenda, which is pretty brief, an overview of the grant programs, applying for the grants, as well as how to get more information. Next slide. So here's a list of the programs we will be covering tonight. First, I'm going to cover our food safety program, as well as our environmental and energy programs. And then Melissa's going to follow with our viability programs. Our ag food safety program is a standalone program that I'm going to cover first. And then I'll cover our Climate Smart for Agriculture program, which, as you can see by this very helpful diagram here, is a combination of our environmental and energy grants into one application process. Then Melissa's going to cover our viability programs, which include the three listed: the Farm Viability Enhancement Program, the APR Improvement Program, and the Matching Enterprise Grants for Agriculture program, which is our Beginning Farmer program. I also just want to note our website here, mass.gov/AGR. You can find all the programs we're talking about tonight under the Grants and Financial Assistance Programs tab, as well as other opportunities that might be of help or use to your farming operation. Next slide. So our Ag Food Safety Program funds practices that reduce food safety risks for both produce and aquaculture operations. We're fortunate in Massachusetts to have this program, which helps produce farms upgrade their produce safety practices to meet Food Safety Modernization Act requirements, FSMA requirements. We're the first in the country to have this program, and very few other states have been able to offer such a program. So we're lucky here to have funding for that. It also helps aquaculture operations meet their food safety regulations for minimizing bacterial contamination under the Vibrio regulations. To be eligible, you must be a produce or aquaculture farm. There's not an acreage requirement. Leased land is okay, and nonprofits are eligible. The program is a reimbursement grant program, as are most of our grant programs. So what that means is we fund total project costs, 80% of total project costs, up to $50,000, meaning there's a 20% cash match. Next slide. So here's just a few examples of projects. This obviously isn't all of the projects we funded, it's just a quick little examples. For produce, we do wildlife fencing, we do portable restrooms, washing sinks, and then there's an example of a rinse conveyor. And then for aquaculture, we do insulated vats, ice machines, and this is a oyster tumbler sorter. Next slide. So our Climate Smart Agriculture program links our environmental and energy grants into one application process. As previously mentioned, this includes our Ag Environmental Enhancement Program, our Climate Program, and our Ag Energy Grant. The Climate Smart Grant is for projects that works towards reducing water use, improving water quality, improving soil health, improving air quality, and of course, reducing energy use and promoting renewable energy. Next slide. The three separate grants in this program are broken into two sections. The first section is for our AEP and acre grants. This means you would apply to this section for projects related to water conservation, improving water quality, improving soil health, etc. It also includes climate mitigation projects and or adaptation projects. The second section would be for ag energy related projects. So again, energy efficiency or renewable energy projects. This year, again, we will be funding 80% of total project costs up to $50,000 per farm, meaning again that there's a 20% cash match required for each project. There is no acreage requirement. There is a minimum of 3 years farming experience required for this program. Leased land is okay, and nonprofits are also okay. We do like to note for our ag energy program that an energy audit is required. So preferably it's included, I skipped ahead. Preferably it's included with the application, as that will give you additional points in the review, but at a minimum, it needs to be completed if you're funded by the end of your project. So if Jerry was able to get into this presentation, he will be available to answer questions at the end. If not, I'll try to manage them. So next slide. So these are a whole bunch of examples from the first section. So there's a no-till seeder, there's a roller crimper, we have automated irrigation for cranberries, fuel storage, various manure management projects, a slurry store, a bedded pack, a lift pump for cranberry operations. In the bottom corner, we have a compost spreader, pesticide storage. We have a composting system for a horse operation, as well as ebb and flow benching for greenhouses, as well as rainwater catchment. Next slide. So these are some energy projects, some greenhouse upgrades, anaerobic digesters, syrup upgrades, including evaporators and reverse osmosis. We have a shade curtain, again, for a greenhouse, refrigeration upgrades, as well as PV projects for a dairy farm. So Melissa is going to go over the timeline a little bit later on more. But we do anticipate opening the Climate Smart Grant later in March with an 8-week open application period. For our food safety grant, it'll be closer to the end of the growing season, probably in September. We do this so that operations can address food safety concerns that were identified over the growing season and then get funded to address them hopefully by the next season, so to implement them. And with that, I guess we'll go to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Adams, and I manage the viability programs at the department. I'm going to talk about those. We talk about 3 different programs under this sort of viability umbrella. And the first one is the original Farm Viability Enhancement Program. This has been around since the late 90s, so over 25 years now, has really helped so many farms in Massachusetts. So the goals are really twofold. One is to increase the financial viability of farm businesses. And so we focus on providing a lot of business assistance. And then the second one is to preserve and steward productive agricultural resources. And so there is a land protection component to this program as well. The eligibility, this particular program is targeted to establish commercial farms in Massachusetts. We do require that the applicant have been on the farm managing it for at least the 3 prior years, and they must own at least 5 acres of land in active agricultural production. And the reason is that the covenants that are required in return for a grant on this program, those are legal agreements that are attached to the deed to keep that land in agricultural use for a specified term. Either 5, 10, or 15, and that's in return for either a $50,000, $100,000, or $150,000 grant. So there is that land protection component, and I would say that certainly one of the criteria for this program is the size of the farm. We are looking to protect a lot of land, so larger farms do score well in terms of that land protection goal, but we also work with smaller farms in this program as well. As long as you have that 5-acre minimum, I would encourage you to apply. We're looking for farms that are successful, that have a good project in mind. And so the thing to keep in mind for this, as well as the other 2 viability programs, is that these are a little different than our more straightforward grants that Laura just talked about, in which you have a project and you apply for it and you kind of go pretty quickly to a contract for a grant. These ones are viability business planning programs. And so the first phase of the program is that you are assigned a business planner to work with. And there's sort of multiple benefits to developing a business plan for your farm. Certainly, if you have one, it could just be an update. But it's something that we really encourage in terms of guiding your plans for your farm, getting all your thoughts down on paper, and can also be really beneficial in terms of applying for financing for bigger projects, as a lot of the agricultural lenders do require business plans. We also provide a lot of financial assistance in terms of assumptions and financial projections, as well as technical assistance as needed. And the technical assistance can be anything from providing websites, providing marketing plans, succession planning, perhaps someone to come out and help you with the layout of a new building, either a retail farm stand or a livestock building. So we have, and on, we have a long list of contractors that we work with throughout the state that can provide technical assistance through our viability programs. And so the second phase then, so just to kind of put put this into some perspective about the timeline, is if you apply in the spring for the following year, you would work on the business planning in the fall, starting in October, going through around March. And then assuming that there's a capital project that you identified in that plan, you would then move to phase 2, which would be the contract for the grant. And for this program, that would be in return for the covenant. The grants are upfront for this program, and it is one of the more unique programs in that way, in that you have a longer timeline for spending the funds. Grants can be spent on any type of capital project. It could be farm equipment like tractors. It could be infrastructure in terms of either new or repairs to existing agricultural buildings. It could be resource improvements such as wells. And so we have a few examples here that might look familiar to some of you, but there's a sugar house here. There's some new signage and a farm stand renovation at Brattle Farm in the Berkshires. We have some new haying equipment and a tractor. So those are just a few of many projects that we can fund, and the real flexibility is that it's really what you need and you develop through your business plan as what would be the best project for your farm. Next program I'm going to talk about is very similar to the farm viability, but it is really aimed at farms that have already been permanently protected with an agricultural preservation restriction through the state, which does keep it protected from development and in agriculture permanently. And so this is only targeted towards those farms who, had not been able to apply for farm viability in the past. So this program was created in 2009, specifically for those farms. Mike Parker, who is here with us today, is the contact for this. He's waving and available for questions. This program also is set up like Farm Viability Enhancement Program in terms of the business planning, one-on-one business planning, technical assistance, that first phase, and then the second phase for the grant. The grants are reimbursement grants. The levels as of this past year were $40,000, $80,000, and $120,000 with a 25% match. And the focus of these grants are on infrastructure. So the investment needs to stay with the farm, with the APR farm. So it could be any type of new or improved agricultural building, or it could be a resource improvement such as fencing, drainage improvements, and that sort of thing. It also can be used for perennials, for orchards, and so that's an option as well. And the final viability program is our Matching Enterprise Grants for Agriculture program, or MEGA. This is our Beginning Farmer program. Jess Camp is the program coordinator for this, and she's also with us today, waving at you, available for questions. She's our Beginning Farmer specialist. So MEGA is a viability program specifically targeted to farmers between 1 and 6 years in business as a farm business in Massachusetts. There's no land ownership required for this particular program. You can definitely be leasing your land. We do require a lease, and we can provide some assistance with that if needed to really make sure that you have the land security that you need to continue investing and growing your farm operation. These are reimbursement grants of up to $10,000 with a 1-to-1 match. So what that means is if you applied for the full $10,000, you would also be putting in $10,000 for a total project cost of $20,000. You could certainly apply for less if that's what you are comfortable with doing. And again, as all of our reimbursement programs, we can certainly help you get that bridge loan that you need to cover the project up front before you get reimbursed. But you do need to wait until the contracts are signed for these programs before you start a project. So in other words, we can't reimburse you for something you've already done before you apply and get accepted. So these grants can be spent on farm equipment or infrastructure. So a lot of examples of this could be greenhouses, farm implements, walk behind tractors, for other types of farm equipment. We do have some examples here of some nice greenhouses, some cages for aquaculture oyster operations. We do work with aquaculture farms. Any type of farms for all of these programs can apply, and some beehives. So it can really be, customized to what it is that you need on your farm. And also just have that benefit of the business planning, particularly at this stage, is really helpful. As well as the technical assistance. And in response to a survey that we did recently of prior participants, we also implemented a pilot mentorship program for mega participants this year, and Jess helped me develop that. So we offered, we're working with 2 different farms, a flower farm and a poultry farm. They both chose to do the mentorship rather than the standard technical assistance, which is usually a couple of hours visit. And this is a much more intensive, in-depth opportunity for some of our established farmers to connect with our beginning farmers, and it's working really well. So I wanted to spend just a few more minutes, I think I'm doing okay on time, with just talking a little bit more about our request for response. As Laura mentioned, there are other grant programs that we didn't mention here tonight. You know, things like composting, another grant for APR farms for stewardship and restoration. There's cost share programs. There's a lot of other information that we are not covering everything tonight, but in general, any of our opportunities that you find on our website will come out through what's called a request for response, or sometimes shortened to RFR. And that's really the way that the state offers an opportunity in which they are welcoming responses. And there is one of those for each program available annually. It may seem like an overwhelming document with a lot of pages, but I'd want to try to kind of spell it out for you that a lot of the information in the RFR is really there so that you can learn about the particular program that you're interested in. So we have consistent formats with different section headings, and things that you can look for to better understand the program would be eligibility, selection criteria for how we review these applications and select them. It's very transparent, and you can see what the reviewers are looking for in a strong application. You can look to see what kinds of projects can be funded, what the timeline is, when you can hear back about whether or not your application was accepted, when you might expect a grant, what the whole time frame might be for a particular program. And within that RFR, there is also the actual application form that you fill out and mail back to us or email back to us, depending on the instructions for that program. That can be anywhere from maybe 4 to 8 pages usually. So it's not, you know, when you look at the whole RFR, the application is a very small component of it. It is something that we expect farmers can fill out themselves. It's not something you need to go hire a grant writer for. We're not expecting, you know, a novel. We just want to, you know, we have some basic questions about your farm. So if you are the farm owner or the farm manager, you're really the most appropriate to fill this out. We'll ask you information about, you know, basic information about your farm, and then oftentimes a few open-ended questions to get a better sense of what your needs are and how the program could help you. There's also something at the end of the RFR called RFR specifications. This is something that you really don't need to pay too much attention to. This is something that's required in all state RFRs, not just farmer grants. So I don't want you to feel like you have to read through all of those sort of legal details. Anything that you need to do in terms of contracts, we will work with you if you're accepted into the program as to what you need in terms of forms and that sort of thing. And I just also want to say that the chances of getting accepted to these programs are good. They're well funded, they're well established. We have them every year. You know, certainly it depends year to year how many applications we get and what the budget might be for a particular program. So it's hard to generalize, but I think for our programs, we often see, you know, maybe like for a particular program, we might get 15 applications and fund 7 or 8 of them. You know, we might get 25 applications and fund, you know, 12 or 13 of them. So I think that, you know, you have a really good chance. And I think I also try to encourage people that if you don't get accepted, not to be discouraged. It could just be that our budget didn't go quite far enough and that you scored well in the review process. Certainly, if you don't, reach out to us and we can help provide information. you might just try again next year and submit a similar application, maybe tighten it up a little bit in certain areas and then get funded. So definitely try again, but I do encourage you to apply for these grants. They're here to help farmers. And the other thing I just wanted to stress is before you actually start filling out an application for a particular program, there are some tips that I provide to just make sure that it's the right fit. Make sure that you understand the program, that it meets your needs, that your proposal for a project is an allowable use of the grant funds, that you meet those eligibility requirements. I'd look at all of this before you start filling it out. What's required? So some programs might, like the Ag Energy program requires that you have an audit done before you apply. So you want to make sure you factor that into your time frame before the application is due. Some of them require a match. Some of them require an attachment, like a map of the farm. And some may require, you want to know what signatures are required. For example, for MEGA, if you don't own the farm, we would want the landowner to sign, and you sort of have to just plan ahead a little bit to make sure. Others may require all business owners to sign. So you just want to make sure that you know what's required. Answer the questions legibly and clearly. Certainly you don't need to, you can fill it out by hand. You can type it. I think we will continue to have email options available for most of our grant programs, but you do want to just check each one individually. I guess I would say if you don't have super handwriting and there's someone else in your family that can fill it out clearly, you might consider that. But in general, it's really something that we're expecting farmers to fill out themselves. And just make sure you allow enough time to get it in by the due date. I will say that a lot of our programs do not consider postmarks. So just really make sure, with mail being as slow as it has been lately, that you get it in the mail in plenty of time, because that means that, if it's due at 4 p.m. on April 26th, it needs to be in our hands, and we just unfortunately can't be flexible on that. So just make sure you pay attention to that due date and plan ahead. So I think that pretty much gets us to the end of our presentation. I do want to just stress again, as Laura had mentioned, you can either go right to our website, or you can also just search in your browser for MDAR grants and financial, and that'll bring you right to our listing of all of the grants available at MDAR. And any one that you want to find out more information on, you just click on it. It'll bring you to the program page, and on that program page, you'll also see the contact information for the program coordinator. We're always happy to take questions. We're always happy, even if you don't know if if you're calling the right person, or if the program you have in mind is right for you. We can kind of talk through what your needs are and make sure we refer you to the right person, or give you the information that you need. So please reach out. If we can't answer all your questions tonight, just reach out to us individually as well. I would also encourage you, if you have not signed up for the MDAR Farm and Market Report, this is our email newsletter. It's a great way to keep up to date with things that are happening in the agricultural field, things that are happening in the department, and it is a way that we do send out our grant announcements. So if you're not sure exactly when a particular grant is going to become available, that's a great way. The RFRs are generally available on Combis, which is our state vendor system, but we also post them right on these program websites. So once they're available, they'll be there. We're also very happy to mail applications to people if you would prefer that. If you don't have a great home printer these days, or you need us to mail it to you, we're always happy to do that as well. So I think with that, and we're going to open it up to questions.
I think Jerry was able to sneak in. I don't know if he wants to just talk any more about the farm energy program, or if I didn't cover enough of energy for him, if he wants to say something, if he's on here.
No, I am on here. Thank you. And I apologize for, I was late at another event, and I'm glad I was able to sneak in. I kept getting number 99 and then 100, so I'm in. No, but I don't think so. Lori did a great job. I don't think I need to add. I think we could just try to answer questions. and go from there. I think the first question actually that came up deals with where do you get an energy audit, right?
That was one of the questions in the chat. If you'd like to take that question, Jerry, and then we can go through the list of questions in the chat in order.
Oh, do you want to host that, Ashley? Should I just answer it?
Sure, you can respond to that question.
Yeah, and a good resource is our Mass Farm Energy Program. We have a Mass Farm Energy Program as well as this Ag Energy Grant. And we have a pool of consultants, and we pay 75% of the energy audit. I think what's more important than just a general audit of your facility is an assessment, a technical assessment of the project you want to build and propose. That's where we want the most detail. How much it's going to cost, how much it's going to save, what's it going to look like, etc. Especially when it pertains to energy efficiency, you're going to want someone that is an energy auditor. If you're looking at putting in a renewable energy system, you can work with your developer, like a solar contractor. They do those every day, and they do those because they want your business. So if you're going to do a renewable project, you're probably better off working directly with the developer that you're trying to work this project with. But if you're looking at a general energy efficiency project, improving efficiency, then try our Mass Farm Energy Program. And the phone number for that is 413-727-3090. The contact info, the website is massfarmenergy.com. And you can also check out USDA, NRCS. They also do energy audits under their EQIP program. They also offer energy audits. So between those two sources, hopefully that helps you.
Thank you, Jerry. And along those lines, just to keep you in the spotlight, the question was, are there energy grants available for mini splits?
Yes, that's a mini split system that, especially if it replaces a fossil fuel, is something that we would obviously have in place. That's correct.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Moving on to the next question in regards to covenants. What if the land already has a deed restriction that keeps it as agricultural use? Does that exclude an already restricted farm? And I believe this was when you were talking, Melissa, about the Farm Viability Program.
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah, if you do already have a deed restriction, then we cannot put another one on it. So you would not be eligible for that particular program. If you are within 1 to 6 years, you could still apply to MEGA and get help that way. Or we do offer a business planning course that you could look at. But you would not be eligible for farm viability if the land is already restricted.
And that also responds to the next question, which is, are APR farms excluded from this in regards to farm viability? The next question that came in the chat was, can a town apply on behalf of an orchard that is between orchardists? And I believe this was in regards to APR program eligibility. But if the individual that put that question in the chat wanted to clarify, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. The town of Littleton has a town-owned orchard, and at the moment we're between orchardists, but farm definitely needs some infrastructure support, and I didn't know if the municipality could apply on for the APR to make improvements while we're between orchardists and looking for a new orchardist.
Why don't you reach out to me? I think I need to know a little bit more about your farm, maybe after the presentation. You could reach out to me and I can talk with you. Yeah, I mean, any type of farm, certainly orchards, should be able to apply. I guess I just need to know a little bit more about maybe that 3-year requirement to make sure there's an applicant that has been on the farm long enough to be able to apply and have a good project.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The next question that came in is, are all applications fillable online for those of us who have bad handwriting?
So we make them into a fillable PDF. Generally, I do for mine. I think Melissa, you do as well.
Yeah.
We're looking into potentially doing online applications. It's a little bit complicated, but we're looking into it. I'm not sure if it'll happen this year, but it'll happen eventually. But if you have handwriting challenges, yeah, we do have a fillable version that you can do, just a PDF.
The next question that came in was, does AEEP or a different program fund conversion of 2-stroke to 4-stroke outboard motors?
So, yep, that's an eligible project. It's under our Climate Smart grant now. We have funded a few of those over the years under AEP and under Climate Smart. So that is an eligible. I should note too that we do put a list of priority projects or example projects in our RFRs, but it's not exclusive. So if there's projects out there that we don't list that meet the goals of the RFR, those are still eligible for consideration too.
Thank you, Laura. The next question is, if an item is approved for purchase with one of the grants, can we make the purchase through the statewide vendor contracts?
I don't really fully know. I mean,
Maybe if there's further clarification.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, so if you're awarded a contract with the department, you are eligible to choose who you make the purchases through. We don't dictate who you make the purchases through. You don't have to use the statewide system. So it's, if somebody's on there that you want to use, I guess you could.
The next question is, one of the images depicted an oyster tumbler / sorter. Which program funded that equipment?
So that is under our Ag Food Safety Grant this year, as well as for fiscal year 23 coming up. We have both produce and aquaculture in that grant. So that is an eligible project under that grant.
And I would mention that that could also be an eligible project under the Beginning Farmer Mega Grant as well. We have funded sorters and other aquaculture equipment.
Great. Thank you. And then just the last question that just came in, if you are awarded a grant, can you apply for another project in another year?
So Melissa's programs are a little bit different in terms of how many times you can apply to them, and I'll let her answer. But for my grant programs, for the environmental and food safety grant programs, yes, if you are funded 1 year and then you have a new project in the following year, you lose a couple points, but it definitely doesn't keep you from being disqualified. And we have many frequent flyers in the grant programs, so it's definitely okay.
Yeah, and I guess that question really differs depending on the program. For example, Farm Viability has been around now for 25 years, so it has allowed farmers to apply for a second covenant. That is a possibility once the first covenant expires. For APR Improvement, it is newer, and so it is a one-time deal at this point, while we've worked with only about 10% of the APR farms across the state. For Mega, you can participate, and after 3 years after your contract, you could then apply to one of those other viability programs for the larger grant. So yeah, and if you have any specific questions, I'm glad to connect afterwards.
The next question that came in is from Dave in regards to Mega. And the question is, under Mega, can one access funds multiple times over the years? For example, for beehives 1 year, and for a walk behind tractor the next, and for a greenhouse the 3rd year. If so, is there a lifetime cap on the amount?
So we do have Jess here. I don't know, do you want to address that, Jess, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can address that, and that gives me a chance to say hello to beginning farmers out there. So Mega is a one and done. As Melissa was just talking about, you may be eligible for other programs in the future, but you can only participate in Mega once.
Thank you, Jess. The next question came in from Terry, and the question is, would land clearing be a viable project?
I guess it depends on what grant you are looking at. I think it really, I think I need to know more about that question and what program you're looking at. But I think probably none of the programs I manage would actually pay to clear land. I don't think. I think we're really looking at projects that will improve an existing operation. I think there could be possibly through our Sarah grant, that's a little more related to restoration, but again, I'm not sure if the actual clearing would be something we could fund.
And we're happy to follow up as well on some of these questions, as Melissa and Laura said, just to find out some more specifics of the types of projects you're looking at doing. The next question is from Dave. And the question is there transparency on the point system for reviewing detailed in the RPR, or do we call the program coordinator?
We do list the review criteria pretty straightforward in each of the RFRs, and it's a good idea to look at that because each of those review criteria directly correlate to points in the review screen. I mean, in the review process. So definitely take a look at that, and how much they're weighted. We don't specify in the RFR, but we could talk about that if it changes yearly. So if it comes up, we can always address it with you.
The next question is, I am an APR. I had wind power, but it fell over this winter. I would like to replace it with solar. Which grant is the best fit?
I'll answer that one. Definitely the CSAP Ag Energy Program for the solar. Definitely.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
And then the next question we have is, if you have more than one farm, can applications be for different farms? So I'm assuming different applications for the same program because of different farms that you have, but the same program that you're applying to?
So generally the way we deal with that kind of thing is we go by unique tax ID numbers. So if the farms had two separate tax ID numbers, they could apply as separate entities. Otherwise, if it's under the same farm, you'd be, but different locations, it'd still be considered one farm.
Yeah, and I would say for the viability programs, because they're business planning programs, we look at the whole farm. We don't separate it out by different properties. So we want to provide a business plan and a grant to benefit the whole farm. So you would not be able to apply more than once for different properties.
And it was clarified that owned under different names. So I think that would go to your unique tax ID point, Laura.
Yep.
And then the next question that came in the chat is, are the applications only fully funded, or could sections of a climate smart grant be funded and others not?
Yeah, so if you're applying for multiple projects under one application, that is an option. So if you're applying for multiple things, we can choose, the review team can choose just to fund a partial project or to do the whole thing, depending on how each item meets the goals.
And the next question is, do you also have suggestions for federal grants or a link? And I will just say that we could follow up with a link in the email that's going out tomorrow with some of the federal programs that we might suggest. But it will depend on the type of project you're looking to do for the federal programs.
Yeah, I should mention too that we are able to joint fund projects. So if you have some sort of project that you're working with NRCS with that also meets the goals of our program, we can do joint funding for larger scale projects. So that is something to note.
Yeah, and I would add to that for USDA, we work closely with USDA, their Farm Service Agency, which is their lending arm, NRCS, which is strictly farm related, conservation plans, etc. and rural development, which has a Rural Energy for America program called REAP, which funds energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. We work closely with them. They're good resources, great resources.
The next comment actually in the chat was, I was told I could not put solar on APR land.
Thanks for that clarifier, because I think that was the question that someone had addressed with the wind turbine that got blown over in a storm. And that might have been APR. You can put solar on APR. You need to comply with the policy, the APR policy. Contact your APR person as well. That needs to be done in parallel to applying for a grant. We'd like to actually see you have a certificate of approval from the APR program prior to submitting. And if that in some cases may not be the case, you should at least be in progress. The rule is 200%. The system you put up can't generate more than 200% of what the farm uses behind the meter. That's the policy, but there are also other items in there that it's best to speak to an APR person regarding other matters that pertain to that as well. Thanks for that clarification.
The next question is, are any of these programs linked with agricultural tourism?
I mean, with our business planning, we certainly look at marketing strategies and ways to attract people to your farm. And so we do, if that's something that a farm is interested in, we can provide some marketing help and some ways to address it. So I guess it's hard to know exactly what's meant by that. It could be, all encompassing, but I'm assuming that, when you say, are they linked with ag tourism, are they supported, through our business planning? Yes, if that's what the farm wants to do, sure.
Thank you, Melissa. The next question from Amy that came in is, would MDAR help to fund a sheep barn for a UMass 4-H site for the 4-H Middlesex Fairgrounds in Westford, Mass? A mom question.
So 4-H sites don't generally count as agricultural sites under our grants. Unpopular maybe, but it has to be, so for eligibility, you have to be producing some sort of agricultural crop or have agricultural production, and 4-H sites don't generally meet that.
Thank you, Laura. And then the next question is for Jerry. Is the 200% rule just mentioned apply to all energy proposals or just APR related?
APR related and farm viability projects need to comply with the 200% policy. Thank you.
Another energy question that just came in. Could any of the energy grants be used for installing utility power?
Typically, no. There may be some efficiency gain. Remember, the energy program is all about efficiency gains. So you're supposed to be trying to do something that provides a more energy efficient operation. If it's something that's used in combination with a renewable energy system, generally our project grant doesn't cover the full cost of the program, but we like to pay for the components that are generating the renewable energy. And again, 3-phase power brought onto a site definitely might have some efficiency gains, but very hard to quantify. So you'd have to really show an energy efficiency gain by just bringing new power to the site.
Thank you, Jerry. Those are all the questions in the chat. We've caught up, but we do have a few more minutes if people have any additional questions. And I'll also be putting a link in the chat for a follow-up survey. If all of you could please fill that out, and I'll be sending that out tomorrow as well with the recording. Question from Dave. When does the mega RPR come out?
I can address, so we're hoping for all of those viability grants to have those posted soon. We're hoping for early March. And it would be a 7 or 8 week open application period. So likely they'll be due by late April. And if you're interested in an application, just contact Jess. I will put that link too in the chat.
And then for the land clearing question that we had earlier, it was related to Christmas tree farm expansion. So I'm not sure if that helps to clarify a response, or we still need to look at the individual project.
It wouldn't be under my grants. And like Melissa said, it could potentially be a Sarah grant, which we didn't cover here tonight, but that has specific APR eligibility rules under that program. So it's tough to say.
And again, we do have the exit survey in the chat. If you could all please take a few moments to fill that out. And then the latest question that came in, would the Farm Viability Enhancement Grant be available on leased land in the leasehold spans the terms of the grant? If the leasehold spans the terms of the grant.
So I would say call me and I can talk that through with you. There are a small percentage of farms in which that could be a possibility. You would have to have the landowner agree to put the land under covenant. So there would have to be, you can't be a lessee and put a covenant on a deed. It would need to be the landowner and the lessee that would apply together. And I could certainly talk with you more about that.
And I'll just say at this time, last call for any lingering questions. And again, we'll provide our contact information for the team members tonight that were on the call for any follow-up questions to our specific grant programs. I don't see any more questions in the chat. A lot of positive feedback. So thank you for everyone that was able to attend this evening. Thank you to our great grant presenters, Melissa, Laura, Jerry, Jess, and Michael for all joining tonight's presentation. And again, thank you so much to the Harold Grinspoon Charitable Foundation for doing this in collaboration with us. I will certainly share information about their local farmer awards program. So for those in the 4 Western counties, they have that information as well in the email that goes out tomorrow. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a great evening and thank you again for your attendance.
Thank you.